Welcome to the programme.
First tonight, the government's tried this week to soften the impact of spending cuts on the elderly. But today, many from our region were in Westminster to voice their lingering concerns.
Despite proposals including a new flat-rate pension, many say they remain worried about the measures outlined by Chancellor George Osborne.
They travelled to London to meet MPs and attend a rally, highlighting what they say is a threat to their quality of life in old age. Our political correspondent Matthew Hudson was there.
For many across our region, it's an uncomfortable feeling being elderly when times are hard. 83-year-old Ian Pettit from Bedford worries about how the country's austerity will affect his twilight years.
Many local authorities provide funding to organisations where people provide social activities during the week, and obviously they're going to be hit, and so many of them will be finding how they can get alternative funding. And what I will stress now, many people have stated that they don't read their winter fill payments.
So today, Ian and two friends were at Westminster to lobby their MP and join OAPs from around the country at a mass rally.
Elderly people deserve our protection, and we have a government, this coalition government, that's producing a lot of measures that will protect them in the short term, but also for people like you and I, who are looking forward to our pension, protecting our interests in the long term as well.
Last week, George Osborne announced universal benefits for the elderly, like free bus passes and winter fuel payments, would remain. Welcome news for older people struggling on limited budgets.
In the past, I've been very sceptical because about the bus passes. I think it's the most wonderful thing we've ever had, the bus passes, because it gets people away from their homes.
But for many, real concerns remain about how they'll be looked after as they get older.
One of the main concerns I've got is for these care homes and this new arrangement they've got with personal budgets and things like that. I think older people could probably get duped.
Care homes and care arrangements were top of the agenda for many attending today's rally in Westminster, as was the proposed flat-rate pension. But many pensioners fear cuts to the benefits budget will hit them hard.
The £140 that they've suggested they're going to give everybody would only apply to future pensioners, and in fact it's this generation of pensioners that are missing out the most.
We now have more than 10 million people aged over 65. That's more than age 16 and under. These are the views of a few in Norwich today.
Of course you're worried, because you think, well, when is it all going to end? You know, what's it going to happen in the end of it all?
If the pension comes in next, this higher rate of pension that they're talking about, £140 a week, then that's going to be a lot better for me.
We've had tough times, went all through the war, yeah, and we know exactly really what to do. We're sensible, you see. We have to be.
If there's strength in numbers, then pensioners know that they and their votes have an increasingly powerful voice in the country. They might not be able to strike, but MPs may ignore them at their peril.
Well, let's get more on this story from Matt, who's at Westminster for us now. Matt, do you think the pensioners are getting more militant? And if they are they going to have an effect, do you think?
Well, they're certainly getting more organised, Jonathan, more aware, if you like, of their political clout, the so-called grey vote. But the fact is, we're all living many years longer than just a couple of generations ago. And statistics all show that people over 65 are far, far more likely to use their vote than people who are under 35. The pensioners that I spoke to today, most were broadly in favour of this flat rate, £140 a week pension. That would mean £560 a month, more than £1,100 for two elderly people living together. Now, the coalition says that money for this could be found by the savings that would be made from making the system far more simple. Cynically, you have to say it's also likely to be paid for by the fact that the age at which we retire is likely to carry on going up over the next few years. And all of this, I'm afraid, like my own retirement, is probably still several years down the line.
OK, Matthew Hudson, thanks very much. Police in Milton Keynes are searching for a gang of youths after they appeared to deliberately kill a dog by running it over as the animal's horrified owners looked on.
They had already pelted one of the family with eggs in a completely unprovoked attack. Natalie Gray has more on this story.
Out walking with their surviving dog Bradley, Tony Fitzgibbon and her daughter Kaylee have been left devastated by the events of Monday night. As she waited for the teenager to return home with the family's much-loved other pet, Jess, Antonia was pelted with eggs by youngsters in a passing car. Worse was to come, as the frightened dog ran out in front of the car and was killed.
I went rushing out to pick up Jess, but I was screaming hysterically, clutching her, and obviously wandering down to scream in a state, and just, you know, it was devastating.
The car, thought to be a black Fiesta, vanished into the night, leaving the Fitzgibbon family shattered, but reflecting that it could have been even worse.
They didn't give two monkeys about what they hit, who they hit, how it was done. To them, it was just fun.
Police in Milton Keynes are now hunting the gang responsible for what they say was a horrible incident, and are asking for anyone in the Bean Hill area at 11 o'clock on Monday night to come forward. Officers say the youngsters involved seem to regard it as nothing more than a funny prank. In the meantime, Tony is left to wonder how her family became the victims of such a vicious attack that's now causing so much heartache. Natalie Gray, Anglia News.
Well, next tonight, the young family from Essex who say they've racked up £1,700 in bank charges for going just 8p overdrawn.
Angela Hannibal and Wayne Green have just had a baby, but they think they may have to move out of their home in Colchester after the crippling fees left them in rent arrears.
Well, in a moment, we're going to hear from Bob Johnson from the Citizens Advice Bureau about what you can do if you are facing similar difficulties. But first, Lorna Ramsey has this report.
A new arrival. A time for joy and celebration. But while Angela and Wayne are over the moon about the birth of Aisling, they fear for the family's financial future. It all started when Angela received this letter, and since then, the fees have spiralled out of control.
It's terrible, you know, I'm not going to be able to pay this, I've got the child now, you know, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford to pay this, and I don't know how the bank is going to be able to help me, to be honest, and I feel totally disgusted about it.
So how can a debt of 8p turn into £1,700? Angela says that in January 2009, a new monthly charge of £8 put it 8p in the red. That little 8p overdraft incurred an instant fee of £69. When that wasn't paid off, the daily charges grew, mounting month by month to hundreds of pounds. And their situation has been made worse after Wayne was made redundant. They say paying back the bank has left them in rent arrears, and they could now lose their home.
We're struggling to pay the rent and council tax now, and along with this, I just don't see how we're going to ever get it sorted now, to be honest with you. It's just an absolute joke, really.
Angela and Wayne say they visited this branch every week to try and find a solution. But their situation highlights a much bigger problem facing hundreds of thousands of people. Last year, the Supreme Court threw out a challenge to the way banks charge fees. Now the government and the Office of Fair Trading is putting pressure to change the system, which earns banks billions of pounds every year. In a statement, Lloyds TSB told us, in light of Miss Hannibal's deteriorating financial situation, we have refunded the charges that have accrued on her account since Mr. Green was made redundant. We have also frozen all further interest and charges on her account. We will continue to work with her to establish a manageable repayment plan. Angela and Wayne say they've already paid back £1,000 in fees, but fear they still owe £700. But with Wayne out of work and a child to think about, they just don't know how they're going to pay it back. Lorna Ramsey, Anglia News, Colchester.
Well, as I said, Bob Johnson from the Citizens Advice Bureau is here and been listening to Lorna Ramsey's report. Thank you for joining us this evening, Bob. To start off with, just how surprised are you by what you saw there?
Not at all surprised.
Really?
No, it's quite common. As a specialist money advisor, we see the real sharp cases like this where they deteriorate quite badly and put homes at risk. But I think the volunteer side sees several cases of bank overdrafts going, well, disproportionately escalating to ridiculous sums.
And it can take over people's lives, can't it? I mean, what are some of the effects that people see when they're affected by this?
Well, debt itself affects people's lives terribly. It can cause depression, and it's something that is unique in this country. Debt and money, we don't talk about it. We try to keep it to ourselves and don't seek help anywhere early enough. And they need to come and see us very, very early, and we'll sort this out for them.
I mean, it's great that you are there to do that, but the point as well is, I suppose, you know, they went to the bank, they went weekly to the bank, and they still, effectively, it took us to really force the bank to actually take some action by the looks of it. You know, in that instance, what more can people do?
Well, standard banking regulations and the lending code says banks, and all the big banks sign up to it, should treat people fairly when they're in serious financial problems, and this case proves it just doesn't happen. It's still all about their profits. You know, keep racking up the charges.
I mean, touching on that point, just generally, how responsive are banks to this? What are the kind of responses they give when people come to them with this kind of problem?
Well, not so long ago, they would consolidate the loans by giving them another loan, but of course that's not available now. I would say that the best thing they can do is tell them to come and see us and we'll sort it out. And people should consider changing their banks. People don't do that often enough. You know, get a fairer deal from another bank. If something's going wrong, sort it out and go somewhere else. Until we start doing that, these banks won't realise that they have to treat customers with respect and treat them fairly as well.
Well, Bob Johnson from the Citizens Advice Bureau, thank you very much indeed for coming in this evening. And a quick reminder that if you want more advice and the website for the Citizens Advice Bureau, do head to our website at itvanglia.com, and all the web addresses will be there for it.